It is a big idea, a new world order.
Your world is not what it seems. Alex answering. Outside the box.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is May 2nd, 2010. I'm your host, Alex Yancey, with you live for the next hour from the Rose City, Portland, Oregon. Over the course of the last couple of weeks, we've talked about a lot of heavy stuff going on the planet. Tonight, we're going to take a break from some of the news and talk with my friend Dee Dee Farrell. Dee Dee, thanks for coming on.
Sure, Alex. Thanks for having me over.
Dee Dee is from autv.aunetwork.tv. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, tell us a little bit about that. And I guess I heard you also did some work with Aaron Russo in the past.
Yeah, that's how I became involved with the American Underground Network. I worked with, as part of a national coordinating group for the movie America, Freedom to Fascism. Mm-hmm. And the group of 38 coordinators that ended up being his core team worked together for 16 months and spread hundreds of thousands of copies of that movie across the nation. Mm-hmm. And through that effort, after Aaron's passing, unfortunately, he died after the success of his movie, we formed another group called the Freedom Fellowship, so that the 38 of us could stay together because we seemed to have some kind of an effect in what was going on. And then later on, myself and my co-host Fred Smart, or I'm his co-host, were asked by the head of the American Underground Network to come and do a show there. And we've done 148 weeks of broadcast, 4 or 5 hour shows a week.
It's aunetwork.tv.
aunetwork.tv is where you'll find our archive of shows.
Now, Dee Dee's been a friend of mine for a couple of years now, and we've spent many, many hours behind the scenes talking about the larger picture. Beyond the New World Order, what else is going on here with energetic shifts, earth changes, and so that's why you're here tonight, Dee Dee, to kind of share what you've been, for how many decades now have you been looking at these changes on the planet?
Well, I'm in my 60s now, and I've been looking at this since I was in high school.
Okay.
And started heavily working with some older people when I was in my later teens. And they were Posse Comitatus members, and they were very big on Constitution. And they sat me down and told me to read the tax code and pointed out to me that it was a voluntary act, and they showed me what had happened with the Federal Reserve in 1933 and how this whole basic takeover of the United States was based on putting the United States into bankruptcy, which now decades later. So I have been doing this work for a number of years, seen a lot of changes on the planet. And I've had a lot of different approaches and feelings about what was going on, like everyone else, everything from fear to trepidation to great hope. And so at this point, we're trying really hard to look outside of the box and really look ahead to see what actually all this really means to everyone as individuals and the whole, the consciousness as a whole.
And part of that is going through a spiritual transformation of sorts as we face this potential crisis that's potentially looming on the horizon, whether it be a false flag or an economic crash. More people are looking at what's the opposite of that nightmarish reality that we need to start, creating for ourselves. And so I think that's what a lot of people in the audience are looking for right now, is some sort of guide point along the road of life.
Well, it's becoming particularly challenging. The more awareness there is on the planet, then the more upheaval you're going to see, because they always go hand in hand. I see these changes with all the global takeover and the economic collapse. They're really indicators of the end of a cycle. And so we're basically walking a tightrope. And I would highly suggest anyone that at this point doesn't have their feet on the ground with some form of grounding or spiritual meditation or practice that gives them connection to their source, they're going to have a lot more trouble riding these changes. The point is to see them through and be objective about looking ahead and creating the kind of outcome you really want to see. Because if we fall into the fear and do despair versus hope, we've lost the ability to have an effect when this change or this collapse, what have you, is over. So it's very important. It's a delicate situation. And it needs to unfold exactly like it is. And that's something that I've come to realize more every day, is that, you know, the more we concentrate on the part of it that we don't want, the more powerful it becomes. But when you take your it's like somebody trying to slug you in the face. If you remove your face, that fist goes nowhere. That fist just goes into the air and disappears and becomes something entirely different.
That's something that I've been feeling even more so the last year or so. That there's a lot of people in the so-called truth movement that seem more interested in the conspiracies or the problems than developing community, things that we talk about a lot. Being able to work together outside of the dollar system, things like that. So that's one thing that I'd like more people to look at, the potential that we do have in light of, you know, all these negative things that they're really throwing at us to kind of keep us vibrationally off balance.
It really is a real for real shift in consciousness. And it's not just an esoteric term, and it's not something that's an individual experience. It's something collectively we're going through. And of course I tend to wax metaphysical, because I understand this shift from a different level than just the third dimension. The Earth itself, of course, people say, well, you know, 2012, December 21st, 2012 is something that comes out of you know, the imagination of the esoteric people, but it's a scientific fact that at that date our sun is going to be lined up with the core of the galaxy through a slit in the Milky Way, basically. And, you know, maybe some people will go on and live in the third dimensional reality during that shift. Others will shift their consciousness up to a point where the reality here that's so aberrant and dark disappears from around them, literally creating heaven on earth. And this is hard to understand, but I really encourage everybody to look deeply at what ascension is. It's a shift in consciousness where you basically take the high road. You don't stay on the low road. You take the high road and you look for solution. You focus on what you want to see happen. And I told someone recently, you know, you don't have to do what we were told. You don't have to accept reality. You can't be in denial to reality, because if you are, you're not going to be seeing what's actually going on. But you don't have to put all your focus on what's real. You have to put your focus on what it feels like to have the kind of life that you really want to live here. And
you know, it's also less about saving the world, but changing the world by changing ourselves. I mean, the world's going to continue on the path that it's been going on for some time, but we have the choice to respond in a more enlightened, aware way, or unenlightened, dumbed down, asleep way. I mean, it's kind of like there are options and choices here.
Yeah, and people will make those choices, and it sounds a little bit, you know, difficult to understand, you know, how a person can choose between one Earth and a parallel universe. But when you know quantum physics and you understand the way things happen, all these dimensions are existing all at the same time anyway. There's no separation. There's no separation between us and God. You know, we can't, you know, try to be spiritual. There's no way we can't be spiritual. There's no way we aren't connected. So we just need to get out of our own way and realize that all this information we're receiving is coming in for a reason. It's coming in to see if we can work at taking it up. You know, so I just recommend all your listeners who are caught in the fear not to so much focus on the results of that, to look at it as what is, but to just purposely take that vision and take it up to another level, a higher level, that frees the bonds of mammon, or whatever you might call it, you know, because it is a darkness versus light. There's no question that the light